Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Practical Pet Business. I have to say, I'm kind of excited about this one because a lot of you are reaching out to me. I know, Lorin, you're getting reach outs as well. This is a challenging time for everybody. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? How do I get, ahead of things? And we're going to focus that down a little bit in this discussion to how do you handle your inventory, whether you're a store, whether you're a vendor. These are challenging times. I want to start off by saying, though, hey, Lorin, how's it going?
Good.
Good. All right. Well, so a lot of the folks out there are having the same question. If you're watching right now, you're thinking, yeah, Rob, it's not easy. It's a challenging time. Completely get that. So, Lorin, I wanted to start with you sharing how you approached it from a store standpoint, managing inventory in disruptive times. And we've seen some disruptive times. So,
Oof.
yeah, I think we're hopefully going to be pretty helpful on this discussion here.
Yeah. So there's the inclination. So every retailer at some point or another, and I know the pandemic was a really masterclass in this, gets to that situation of balancing money with inventory needs. It's a really hard thing to predict during disruptive times how all that's going to play out. And right now, with what's going on, people are in a little bit of a panic of, do I stock up? Before tariffs hit, or before there's any type of another pandemic or anything like that. It's the toilet paper theory. It's, oh my gosh, it sort of blew my mind. By my store, we actually had a big semi truck at a local supply store turned over and rated for on
Wow.
delivery for toilet paper. I was dumbfounded. And it's always interesting because it's like, there's other options. It's not like the only thing that you can
Right.
do. But I'm getting too graphic here. But it's the same thing. You have to look at which all your options are. So especially because you have to balance, you have to, in disruptive times, is the economy going to slow everybody down? Because the disruptive times that retailers are going through, everyone is going through. So people get tighter with their money. And at the same time, do we have enough inventory on hand to weather what we're going through? Because the prices are going to increase, things are going to be more in demand, they're going to be harder to get, they're going to cost more. How long can I balance that out? And I've been down that road too. When I knew even as something as simple as a manufacturer was going to have a price increase, a significant price increase, and just for no other reason than they hadn't maybe in a couple of years, and it's like, well, crap, we got to do it now. I'd be like, oh, when are you doing this? And then I would adjust my buying to try to bring in enough to buy me 30 days or so of extended beyond the normal inventory levels, to get me an extra 30 days of being able to forewarn my customers and to also help them with other ways that they could deal with this too. Nothing is an all or nothing. Nothing.
Sure. Yeah.
There are multiple ways to handle things, and I think that a lot of people forget that. They get really focused in, and they think, okay, well, I can't feed that food. Well, this is a perfect time to feed rotationally. Let's start now while you still have access at the current pricing to that food. Well, this product that I always use, they're telling me, they sent out a consumer notice that the price is going to go up 30%. Okay, well, let's look at our other options. Who else we can go to? So I think from a retailer perspective, we don't want to help to spread the panic, but we want to figure out how to create a balance of not just our inventory, but options of inventory so that people aren't stuck in one thing. And we should be doing that all along anyway.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned too, price increases. Yeah, that's another part of this I hadn't even really thought deep about from the store standpoint. Um, how are you handling those? Because you're at least getting notice on those.
Mhm.
Um, you should be if you're working with a good vendor. And so that's a great call out there because you're right. When you're seeing that you make adjustments, same thing right now where it's maybe not I think this is really important. What you pointed out here is this is industry wide. And so this isn't a situation where it's only consumables or it's only hard goods or it's only, X or Y. This is across the board.
Mhm.
And I think from my standpoint, as I see it, my expectations for the stores that I go and see is exactly what you just said, which is they've got what I want, but I feel like I've got a good relationship with them that they should be letting me know, hey, because as a consumer, I might also want to stock up as well. I'm not going full, semi truckload of inventory, but I might want to buy an extra one just so I have that transition as well.
Mhm.
And that's that relationship that I hope I have. I better have that with the stores I go to because if I
Right.
don't, I'm looking for that relationship. And that's my expectation beyond the inventory because I understand things change. And that's another part of this that I also wanted to hit for not just the stores, but for those pet parents that watch us, and many of us are all in one. And that is, this is also a time frame where we will see vendors and manufacturers changing, especially in the consumable side, the ingredients that are going into those consumables
Right.
and or the sizing. Think of your bag of chips as a human, you know, the bucket full of, has shrunk down to, maybe, you know, a third less, etc. So be looking at that. I know that was something I just had a conversation with a extended family member who was like, "What's going on? I mean, I bought this, 60-pound bag, but it used to be 80 pounds." And I'm like, "Well, first of all," and then I just went, "Boy, that's a bummer." Listen to our podcast every once in a while. You might know that 60 or 80 isn't really going to make the difference there for you. But that being said, when it's not your focus and you're noticing those things, and I think that's what's going on and potentially going to be hitting. And there's again across the board. It's one thing when just one product goes up or one brand goes up, one sub segment of products goes up. It's another when you see each of them going up. And I think that's another opportunity for the stores, not just from an inventory standpoint, but I like that you pointed out, let's talk about what other options you have to address this. Because that's one thing, it's interesting. We used to talk about functional, functional, functional. And a lot of that was driven because the foundational foods that people were feeding were not functional beyond the very basics. And
Mhm.
so that was important that, look, this isn't just another treat, empty calories that you're putting in. This has functionality beyond that with some supplementation, with some boost of this or boost of that. I think we're back in that stage. People, especially, and I think I don't know that we left it. I don't think, coming into the pandemic, it was already a big push to be able to extend your dollar and do more with what you were trying to provide health wise for your pet across the board. And I think that's only exploded. But I think the problem is, and you and I talk about this many times, is you can't get caught up in the marketing of it. And so it's
In the
functional.
panic. Yeah.
Yeah, in the panic of it, like, oh my gosh, this is going to go up. Well, how much is it going to go up? It's going to go up $1. Okay, but if it's a 40-pound bag, that's probably not going to be noticed by you. Now, if it's a 16-ounce, supplement and it's going up by, $3, $4, that you're going to notice that because you're going through that much quicker. And so I think for me, my uh, thing for the stores would be this is another opportunity for you to really shine. Manage it. Don't overbuy though, too. I think that's the question
Yeah.
this week that's come a lot of times. People are like, I have this opportunity, and I'm like, how much do you sell in a year? Like, it sounds like you're buying a year's worth of inventory. I don't, the shelf life on that is, I'm not seeing the value. So there's also that
Well,
financial aspect. Dial it back, look at your numbers, look at what you've been selling, and what's your plan if these pressures that are causing this all of a sudden go away? Now you're sitting with an extra year's worth, or 7 months, or 8 months, or whatever amount more
on a consumable
on a consumable. Yeah.
with an
So,
expiration date.
yeah. Now, I do want to point out, though, too, on the vendor side of things, really important communication. This is where you stand out as a good partner to your stores. And I think, whether you're using, your manufacturer's reps, whether you're using your distribution channels, or you have that direct connection with the stores, everybody's going through this up and down the chain. So work with the folks, communicate with the folks. Hey, this is what's going on. If you're manufacturing the end product and you're seeing, oh my gosh, this is going to hit us really hard on these products, communicate that. I would much rather know that there's a good chance this will be impacted than, oh yeah, sorry for the last minute notice. We had to hit this by, 30% because we got hit with extra fees, or we got hit with an inventory shortage. So we had to buy from another place and it was 30% more expensive. So we're passing that on to you. Don't do that if you're a vendor. Make
No,
sure you're
I've seen some
communicating.
of that. I've seen
Oh,
some of that.
100%.
No notice at all, complete meltdown on the receiver's end of the final notification. Oh, it's on starting on Monday. Like, what? What? What do you mean
Right.
starting on Monday? One of my clients is a distributor that we both know.
Yep.
And we've had a number of conversations about this. And those brands that have said, you know, it hasn't happened yet. We already had enough inventory in the pipeline. We already had placed our orders. We're not feeling that yet. So we're not reacting to it at this point in time. As opposed to those who are probably in similar situations and are getting
Right.
the jump on it. Because unfortunately, in many cases, it's an excuse to raise the price,
Yeah, it's
and it doesn't go back the other way.
right.
Now one manufacturer happened to tell this distributor that they're going to list it as a separate line item so that it would come off when tariffs stopped, if they get to that point. And that was a really cool way to, have it separated out so that you as the buyer knew that that wasn't a permanent thing. But there's so much that I'm seeing coming through. It was quiet for a while, and then all of a sudden, so many categories, not just pet, but so many categories. Oh my gosh, I heard on a commercial the other day for a car dealership, who said, these are still tariff-free pricing. I'm like, come on. They're 2024s that you haven't gotten rid of. No
Right.
kidding, they're tariff free,
Right.
And it's like, oh, I just looked at my husband. I was like, here we go. It's just like the pandemic where it becomes a excuse to either hoard and sell things that other people can't get, or to, inflate pricing, or. And, it's really tough on brick and mortars. It's really the hardest, I think, on brick and mortars because you want to have a good offering. You want to have good inventory. You're held hostage to whatever you're told by the vendor. This is what it is. All right, well, crap. I guess I'll have to find something else. Whereas when I look back as to how it was that my store weathered the pandemic so well, I'm absolutely convinced it's because for years before that, we had taught people, oh, brands are going to hate me for this. Um, no brand loyalty.
We still love you, those of us watching.
I know, but I would teach them have no brand loyalty. No brand loyalty. The only loyalty you should have is to your animal. And in order to do that, you need to make sure that you are rotationally giving whatever it is you're giving, foods or treats or supplements or whatever it is, because the body needs an assortment. It needs different sourcing, it needs different formulations, different recipes, all of that, because the body responds differently to all those things. And it refreshes the response as well. And I know for a fact that when people would come up and I'd go, I don't have that. Oh, no turkey? No. What do you have in that brand? I've got fish, chicken, beef, pork. Oh, okay, I can do any of those. Perfect. Look
Yeah.
what you've done for your animal. Or I didn't get that brand in this week. They're waiting on a truckload. It's like, oh, okay, what other brands are you feeding? Wait, let me get your loyalty program pulled up. And look and go, oh, I got the other two brands that you rotate through. All right, give me one of those. It was so much easier for the consumer and the animal and the store to have trained people for that ahead of time, because then you weather everything, because it doesn't matter if it's a tariff or a pandemic, or whatever it is, it's this all the time,
Yeah,
you
it's
know
just goods. I mean,
yeah,
at that point, you. I like that. I certainly love brand loyalty, but the brand is your relationship with the pet when you're a pet parent.
right.
So I don't think anybody can be too upset with you on that. And there are some brands that I am extremely loyal to
Me too, me too.
that feel that, quotient, if you will. But you're correct. At the end of the day, if I can't get it, what's my pivot? Now I do
Mhm.
rotate, and I think that's important. Cycle on, cycle off with different supplements, things of that nature. And I think that's part of that mentality too, that your folks, and I know because I was one of your customers, really did understand. And so if you're not doing this now, whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're a store, there is not only one way to get to that end point that we are trying to get to with our pet. And so by talking about these other things and by having options, you're also setting yourself up to be a viable solution for them when these things happen. And I love how you said that, the ebb and flow of things. There's always some pressure coming these days. Remember, we were talking about shipping for a while. And all of a sudden it was, well, it costs too much to ship things now. Oh my God, it's so cheap to ship that these online folks can just drop an 80-pound bag. Why would anybody go buy one?
Right.
And, so there's an ebb and flow. Something's always coming at you. And you do yourself, just like as a pet parent, you do your pet a service by understanding balance over time, and options are not a negative. They're a tremendous source for you to have peace of mind that it's okay. Because at the end of the day, and this is something that I'm really passionate about, our pets feed off of our energy.
Right.
So if you're doing the best thing possible, but you are stressed as all get out and you're in a negative mood and you're passing that on. So great, we're doing wonderful here in one area and we're mucking it up in the other area. So,
Well,
give me some feedback on that.
even with animals that have sensitivities, because that's where you'd hit that glitch.
Yeah,
People say, well, my dog can't have any, this is why I feed her this.
sure.
I would teach my clients early on, what's your plan B? You must have a plan B. No matter what, you have to have a plan B. And where that came to be very valuable was, we think as the industry, we think of the ebb and flow as to what hits us, right? Whether we're retailers, distributors, or manufacturers. But there's an ebb and flow in the consumer side of, they get laid off, they lose their job.
Right.
So they have to buy a new car because their car got totaled. Anything like anything like that is an unexpected expense, that now it's like, oh, I'm really stretched right now. What can I do? If you aren't already set up for these answers to react to the ebb and flow, for your customers, the best way to do that is when there's no need to do that. So right away, what do most retailers do? We get somebody on a food and then we leave them on that food, right? That's the food, that's their food. And then we've never put anything into place to protect the consumer and the animal to change. And so you have to set something up, some sort of a plan B, something to rotate through, at least two, ideally would be three. But in any ebb and flow situation, whether it's driven by the economy, driven by a pandemic, or driven by the consumer themselves, we have to have the answers.
Well, I'm just upset that you haven't, called out my plan C for, cricket. So, but that's okay. That's okay. Most sustainable, nutrient dense, but that's okay. Yeah, I'll get you over there at some point.
As long as there's food for me to eat, there's food for my animals to eat. And I don't eat
I
cricket.
eat cricket.
I don't eat cricket. So
My
that's
my
not
kids,
happening.
my wife, they may not have known until they listened to
This
the
is why
radio.
I don't eat at your house.
Well, what's interesting? I have noticed a lot of people are declining. And I'm a
Wonder
decent,
why.
yeah, I'm a decent chef. It's always an adventure. So I want to wrap it up for everybody on this inventory. It is really so important for all of you, and we get that. I would just really urge you, don't get caught up in the overarching, this is going to be the worst experience we're going into. This is going to impact. Use your common sense, dial it back, and yeah, exhale, you know, um, and just look. Okay, we're going to have a change. What's a realistic approach to this change that isn't going to be so upsetting if what everybody is saying, and everybody's a probably exaggeration, but what folks are saying doesn't happen? Because quite frankly, when we look back, that has been the outcome more often than not. And or these are temporary bumps, and you don't want to compound it. You can get through a bump. But if you set yourself up with a house of cards where it better happen that way because I have leveraged everything to address this, and that doesn't happen, that would just be the shame. And that's why I wanted to do this episode today, because I see folks in a higher level of panic than they've been in a long time, and I'm worried for them putting too much into this and risking their own businesses and the financial health of their business.
You know who it sucks for the most is the manufacturers because their plan B is only the rest of their line. So there's a manufacturer in particular that has their and not the only one, but that comes to mind. He has his packaging done in another country,
Yep.
and the
Yeah.
food is made in the US, but packaging comes from another country, or the aluminum for cans come from somewhere else, and you can't pivot like that. These are things that take a long time to set up, and you just can't go, oh, well, you can't do it. Let me go have it done over here. It just doesn't work that way. It's really hard on them.
Yeah.
And I really feel for them because I think this is depending on how this plays out, because this is also going to have long lasting effects for manufacturers. Because by the time, even if tomorrow everything stopped, the effect lingers for some time, and therefore it's going to linger in the pipeline, effect and cause and response and all that. I worry for them because I think you're going to see the landscape change.
Completely agree. Well, on that, let us know how you all are addressing this. We know many of you are going through this. You can send us an email at practicalpetchat@gmail.com. You can hit us up on all the different social media networks. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We know you've got a lot on your plate. Hopefully, we've given you some food for thought. Thanks again for joining us here on
Thanks, guys.
Business. Thanks, Lorin.
Thanks, Rob.
The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as, nor should it be construed as, professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment for your pets. Always seek the advice of a qualified veterinarian with any questions you may have regarding your pet's health or medical condition. Never disregard professional veterinary advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The hosts and the guests of this podcast are not liable for any actions taken based on the information shared during these episodes. Any reliance on the information provided is solely at your own risk. Copyright 2025 Practical Pet Chat, all rights reserved. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or reproduction of any content from this podcast, including but not limited to audio, scripts, and show notes, is prohibited without prior written consent. The opinions and views expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Practical Pet Chat.